think we are live. How's it going, everybody? This is the Cerebral Spice Rack. We are here. We are here for a special episode with my campaign buddies. Got a couple questions to ask, and should be a fun time. We're all just been campaigning the last 2 months out here in New Hampshire. It's been a fucking awesome time. So we got some stories. We got some stuff for you guys. So it should be a good episode. So we'll get right into it. It's not our usual newscast style. We're gonna, just have a friendly chat here between friends. So it should be pretty good. So let's get into the first question here. And how we're gonna do this is I'm gonna ask the question, I'll answer it, and then we'll go in a clockwise fashion. So it'll be me, okay, Anthony, Harry, and then Tony. All right. So first question is, how or why did you start working in politics? So this is kind of a long one for me, but I'll try to condense it as most as I can. I got involved in politics from a very young age. I mean, my parents and my dad was always listening to people like Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, had all the conservative talk radio on, and he finally sat me down with my uncle in around middle school when I was I don't know, maybe I was like 12, and explained Soviet Russia and how everything happened over there and how communism happened, and that really jarred my passion, my enthusiasm to start actually looking into some of these things like history and all of this stuff to actually see what's been going on. And I think that was my catalyst to get into politics. And getting into high school, did some not campaigning, but just enthusiastic work for the presidential campaign in 2012. Was a Romney person, but definitely not a Romney person anymore.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. But and not that I would have voted for Obama anyways. But then got into college, and my friend Nathan Fatal, who might have watched this eventually, he's the one that really brought me in. He brought me into YAL, Young Americans for Liberty. Was a chapter president for a school for years, and then was eventually a state chair, and then from there worked on some campaigns, went to Michigan and New Hampshire back in 2018, and now I'm here again in 2022. This is like my 4th or 5th campaign now, and it's real fun work, but it's very mentally and physically exhausting, but it's all worth it at the end of it, as long as we win. So that's really how I got involved, and I don't know if you guys wanted to add in anything on that, or we could go to you, Anthony.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Anthony Orwick. My story is kind of similar. I've probably been as long as a vet as you. I started, I guess, my political experience, like, I grew up in a really dysfunctional household, and I had very loving parents, but there was a lot of dysfunction, and it taught me a lot about how to create like an identity for myself, like how to create a persona, like a real persona, for myself that was separated from that kind of like psychologically abusive and like toxic environment. And part of that development was developing like my own political ideology. And I was fascinated by like higher level thinking, so like philosophy, things like that. Like I love that. And I had the opportunity to, when I was 16, go and study abroad in France on a foreign exchange scholarship for my high school. And I was the first student in my high school to go and do that. And so I was kind of a bit of like a pioneer. And that always has defined sort of my experiences throughout time. And so when I went abroad, living in France, they had, something like 16, 18 political parties that would run even in like their municipal elections. So I was there in March of 2010. So they were doing their municipal elections during the Sarkozy administration. And I was blown away by how many parties were campaigning at the same time. I was like, okay, this is crazy. There's so many different political parties. They had like 3 communist parties. There would be like 3 green parties. There would be, there was like 2 to 3
That's how it is in Germany too.
Yeah, like, and I was just like sitting here, I was like, this is so different from the United States, and they were very critical of the Bush era foreign policy over there. The invasion of Iraq was not a popular thing at the time for France. They did not agree with Bush, however you want to, the Bush doctrine, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But Obama had been in power now for almost, a little more than 2 years. And I guess he got inaugurated in 2009. So he had been in power for over a year now. And there wasn't really a substantial change from the Obama era foreign policy to Bush era foreign policy. And
Mm.
so I was like, all right. But there were no criticisms of the Obama administration. And I was kind of wondering why that was. And I kind of just wanted to start over, and I started Googling and I started trying to figure out what I believed in. One of my best friends, Holden, that I went to high school with, actually told me about Ron Paul when I was in high school, like real young. And I didn't really think much of it. But I found him when I was trying to discover the different parties, and I found the Libertarian Party that way. And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is like this is the best party for me, And I got to college in 2011, and I was a freshman president for Young Americans for Liberty, and that was wild. I joined the chapter like on the first day of tabling, and that was really cool. And it was run mostly by anti-war vets, like real active duty military vets. And I had never immersed myself in that kind of environment where like one of my other close friends was wounded in Iraq after doing 2 tours and ended up needing rehabilitation over a period of 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
and
Cool.
still struggles to this day from what went on in Iraq around in 2007. And in 2012, I was the state chair, and that really set the stage for like what ended up being, um, basically the foundation for my ideology, because 10 years later, here I am still.
Mm-hmm.
So that's background.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, just one thing that you brought up, like that I didn't mention was, yeah, obviously Ron Paul is very influential to you. To me, Rand Paul was one of the most influential people
Yeah.
of my timeline. I just remember seeing him in high school on NBC, and he was the only one speaking any kind of sense on the mainstream media at the time. And yeah, it's that's something I definitely couldn't have left out. Rand Paul is definitely a big reason why I'm here. So,
Oh, and I
um,
forgot to add that I was the Youth for Paul chapter founder for our university
oh, there
at
you
the
go.
time.
Yeah.
We went up to Iowa when he announced his candidacy in October of 2011, and because he announced it on University of Iowa campus,
Mm.
and that was really cool. And that was how I started to meet like some of the Ron Paul like campaign people. And then we went back home, and as soon as they announced the opportunity, we were one of the first 3 chapters in the United States to establish itself for the Ron Paul campaign, which was really cool.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, and then Harry, if you could introduce yourself, and then how or why did you get involved in politics?
All right. Hey, I'm Harrison. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Harrison.
Big Hairs, also known as Big Hairs.
Yeah.
I'm an artist from California. I DJ and produce. Thing. But the thing that got me into politics was, I don't know. I've always been questioning authority, and when something is said to you and you just have to accept it how it was, especially when going to like public education, elementary school, and throughout high school, I would always question like my health and my government teacher,
Mm.
because he would always talk about healthcare and why he was a Democrat and all this, and it was me and my group of friends who were in the corner who would always raise our hands and be like, why is that?
Mm-hmm. Asking the right questions.
Why are we paying taxes to fund for people's health when, I don't know, I would like that money instead. At least that's what I
Well,
thought at the time.
yeah, not taken out of your taxes and used on someone else.
Yeah.
A more refined way.
Yeah, that's what my young brain was thinking. And then, well, you, Everett, you got me more into it with Young Americans for Liberty, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some stuff at Allen Hancock College in Santa Maria, California, for a couple months there. Truthfully, I wasn't trying the hardest at it because I was more focused on other things like my music, but
Mm.
it was becoming more important the older I have gotten.
Mm.
So yeah, more or less like we grew up with our dad always influencing us. We're always riding in the car when we're kids up to high school, listening
Mm.
to Rush Limbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then same with our mom. You know, she's a big old Trump supporter, and
Oh wow.
I wouldn't really consider myself like a true Republican, but like
Yeah, me
libertarian.
either. Yeah, libertarian all the way.
Because I like to see a middle ground, you know. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
kind of my background.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Me and Harry obviously have very similar backgrounds since we're brothers. But yeah, it was an exciting time growing up, and I'm really thankful that our parents, were so cared so much about this kind of stuff to get us into it. But yeah, I'll move
It
on to
must
you.
have been challenging doing that, like in California.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, we got bullied a lot for our conservative beliefs, and we always had to be challenged
Yeah.
on it. And obviously, I'm not a full conservative. I'm out here for a conservative candidate and many other conservative candidates, but I really am truly a libertarian, and that's what I found in high school was the Libertarian Party, and all of that stuck out to me as being the right way to go. And because the Republicans just, I don't know, they've gotten
Yeah.
so far off the path of what they originally stood for as a abolitionist party. But yeah, the Libertarian Party is the way to go. If we can shill for them anymore. But yeah, we'll move on to you, Tony. If you could introduce yourself real quick, and then how you got involved in politics or why.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tony Mesta. So mine's I guess I'll give a little bit of background like Anthony and you did. I grew up mostly with my mom. She was working all the time. She was a Democrat, but only because that's just how it's widely understood in El Paso society. I'm from El Paso, Texas. And it's just like NPC thinking, vote blue because the red ones hate gay people. That was like the NPC thinking of everyone. The Republicans are racist. The
Mm.
Republicans hate gay people, and that was like the dominant thought. So my mom only voted just when she voted, she was proud of it. She loved doing it and all. I don't think she ever fully understood what she was doing though. Side note, I've gotten her to be red pilled now, so that's great.
There you
Um,
go.
Yeah.
but yeah, I grew up thinking, okay, blue's good. I'm a Democrat if I were to be asked, I suppose. And I remember the first time I voted, I was actually I was in an advanced placement history class that was credit for college, and he just kind of gave us whatever assignment he felt like sometimes. And we were in a computer lab, and it was across the hall from another computer lab that happened to be the voting location for that area. So he was like, "Hey, I'll give you guys extra credit if you go vote." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll go vote."
There you
And
go.
I went, I
That's so
voted.
cool.
I clicked the screen and I voted for Obama. And then I sent the ballot. And I'm just like, "Yeah, cool." And I come back and he's like, "Oh, who'd you vote for, Tony?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I voted for Obama." And he's just like, "Why'd you vote for Obama?" And I'm just like, "I don't know." And looking back at it, I'm like 90% sure that dude was conservative and he just didn't want to address it. But I was just like, I don't know. And then that kind of got me thinking a little bit, like, why did I vote for Obama?
That's
And
hilarious.
yeah, and I just kind of like dropped it and didn't think about it. And after I graduated high school, I dedicated a lot of my time to my girlfriend at the time, who's now the mother of my child.
Oh,
So I didn't really think about politics. I was focused on my kid. Um, and I was raised, even though my mom was the one mostly raising me, my grandma looked after me while she was working because she worked all the time. My grandma was extremely Christian. She was so Christian, in fact, that she wouldn't wear pants because she thought that God would smite her for trying to be a man.
wow.
So she would just like, she would constantly sing Bible verses. She was very religious all of the time. I was religious as a kid. I grew out of it a little bit and I'm now atheist, but I grew up with that thinking constantly around me. She constantly raised me to be a good Christian person. So those morals were constantly inside of me, and I tried to still follow them, I suppose, even subconsciously. And so one day, 4 years later, Trump is running, and I'm working at Dish Network. And I'm
Dish.
just in the call center talking with everyone, and they start really hating on Trump, like really hard. And they're just like, "Oh yeah, he's racist. He's out here trying to get rid of all of us brown people, blah blah blah." And I'm just sitting there like, how do these people know this? Is this man out here like on a podium saying these things? Like, why do they hate him so much? So I remember going out to the parking lot and just like one day just deciding to research him during lunch. And I was like, hey, I kind of agree with like everything he's saying.
Mm.
So I was just like, holy shit. And then I looked more into him. I started watching videos. There was this one video in particular that kind of Trump pilled me a little bit. It was a video that literally said this video will win Trump the election. And it was a YouTube video that was like an hour or two long, and it just showed Trump talking about all the issues America was facing up until that moment. And he kept saying, like, I'll never run until I have to, blah, blah, blah. And I was really inspired by it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to vote for this guy. And I just am going to be right wing now, I guess. So for the next, like, I want to say 2-3 years, I was at that point, I knew I was Republican, but I didn't share it with anyone. I was very, very quiet about it because, like in California, El Paso is extremely blue. El Paso is so blue, in fact, that if you have a Trump sticker or something, people will literally key your car. It's bad. So, you know,
Yeah,
I
especially
was
now.
just, yeah, I'm not really about that conflict most of the time. Now I am, because that's just where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I
at the moment, I was just like, yeah, nope, not going to deal with that. I'm not working in it. You know, now I am. But so I was just like, yeah, I'll stay away from that. And there was like, eventually I just kept, you know, just being Republican. I met some friends that eventually were Republican that I would talk to about it. And COVID happened. And after COVID happened, I remember having a day when they locked us down. Um, I was with my friends and we had been habitually drinking. It was a very dark period in my life. I was drunk literally every day. And I remember walking outside and being like, oh, the government doesn't want me to walk outside. Ooh, look, I'm walking outside. And I would go outside and I was like, hey guys, let's go for a walk. And I
Yeah.
started thinking like, hey, like, why do I care what the government tells me? And that was like my first step a little bit. And I started subscribing to Reddit threads that were libertarian. And one day I'm scrolling on it and I see an ad for Young Americans for Liberty. And in the comments, a state chair, Nathan Reed, I remember his name very well. Nathan Ruin, I'm sorry. He's the state chair, I believe, for New Jersey. I'm not sure exactly, but he was recruiting on Reddit. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm interested. So he sent me the application. I thought they were going to steal my organs. I was very just skeptical. I thought it was really weird that they're just gonna have me travel to X place and just like work there. I thought it was really weird. So, but I'm
Yeah.
just like, all right, I'll take a chance on it. So I applied. I didn't think I'd get it. I was like, well, I'd never be able to work in politics was my thought because I was very lost. I could never find a job that I genuinely put all my soul into. I was just jumping from call center to call center in El Paso. So, you know, at that point I applied and I was like, hey, that'd be really cool. I'd be able to work for like a cause. So yeah, I applied, I got the job, and then they sent me my contract and I'm like, holy shit, this is real. Like they want me to come to Greensburg, Kansas. So yeah, I did. I hopped in my car and I drove to Greensburg, Kansas. We won that campaign. That was for Brett Fairchild. I worked really hard. I remember like I was already walking a lot to help with my depression at night, so I was already prepared for the walking. Um, and it was intense. I remember just like walking around and just being like being so like I didn't know anything. I thought I knew what I was talking about. People would tell me like, oh, you know, Liz Cheney this, you know, this person that, and I'm just like, who is that? Like I don't know who Liz Cheney is. I don't know who this person is. Like who are all these people? And people at the door would make me feel stupid. So I would just be like, I need to learn this. And so I started looking into things more and more. And I had this Marine buddy there that was very radically libertarian. And he would teach me things. He would tell me to go to different websites to look up libertarian philosophy. And he started little by little yellow pilling me. And by the time I was done with the Brett Fairchild campaign, he had converted me from a neocon into a libertarian. And I started looking into it on my own, and now I just all the time listen to Rothbard. Super into liberty. That's all I do all day, every time, all the time.
Yeah.
I've been working with Young Americans for Liberty the past 2.5 years. It's been great. Every campaign, I put my heart and soul into every single one. Knocked every door with enthusiasm, every possible moment. And they promoted me to a director, and I started doing stuff for Hazlitt. It was just great overall. I found something to do with my life. I found a passion in my life. It literally gave my life meaning. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be doing random odd jobs that just keep my attention for like 6 months and just dip. And I was in a cycle of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
Young Americans for Liberty, I almost thank them for like saving my life almost because I
Mm.
found like a meaning and purpose. It was great overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that ties all of us together here is Yal. And just a
Yeah.
short story how I got involved. I was falsely accused of assaulting my cousin, and I was in jail for 5 days. And then as soon as I got out of that, I knew I had to do something with my life. I had not been involved super passionately in politics before that, but after I got out of jail, in jail, I knew that I had to do something when I got out. And
Yeah.
a couple of days after that, that's when my friend Nathan hit me up, like I said, and he got me in. So it's really cool to see how many of us have really come together through Young Americans for Liberty. It's really a great organization. They can have their faults and their mistakes at times, but it really does. The organization itself has really brought together some really good people, and we wouldn't all be here now if it wasn't for them. So
Exactly.
it's an awesome organization. We'll shill for them a little bit. They are a great organization. If you ever want to get into politics, get your foot in the door, they're a great way to start. So they can get you on a campaign or start your local college chapter or then become a state chair. There's a lot of opportunities through that path if you're more liberty-minded like us and don't fit into either the right-left paradigm or even the socialist capitalist paradigm, really, although we're probably all capitalists here. But I met some more libertarian socialists through Yale, and that has also opened my mind to a lot of things. But we'll move on to the next question here. So this is gonna be a good one. So what's your favorite thing about campaigning? So my favorite thing is just being able to see new areas. Like, I get to travel for basically free. They pay for you to, come out to these places most of the time. They pay for your lodging, they pay for your gas, and you get to, at least with door knocking, you get to be on the ground in these places where you would have never been able to be before, and you actually get to meet the people that live there. So you actually can form a more wise worldview about the locations, at least in America, because we probably wouldn't be door knocking anywhere else. But just as an American, you get to see what other cultures are like, little subcultures of certain states. I've been knocked in California, multiple places, SLO, Bay Area, Sacramento. Been to Michigan, the Grand Rapids area. Now New Hampshire. I did the east side or the west side of New Hampshire in 2018. Now I've done the east side, so I've pretty much done the whole state. I know what the people here are like. I know what the politics are like here. I know how it is. And I would have never gotten that opportunity if I had never started campaigning or door knocking. And it's just such a cool experience to be able to be on the ground, meet people, experience the areas. And, outside of politics, just being able to be in the area, experience the mountains, the rivers, the trees, all the lakes that were in Michigan. It is an amazing experience. And if you've never door knocked before, I would highly suggest that you get into it, at least for a little bit, for whatever cause you believe in, because it is just truly an eye-opening experience, and it really broadens your worldview like nothing else can. So it's really awesome. I would really recommend it. Maybe not put your whole life into just door knocking, but at least for a little bit, it's just something that would, like I said, just broaden your horizons, broaden your world perspective, make you a wiser, more competent individual when you take on the world. So that's my favorite thing about campaigning. So very wholesome. So we'll move on to you, Anthony. What's your favorite thing about campaigning?
So I kind of have two answers for this. My first answer it was something I was thinking about a couple of days ago. And when I go door to door, part of the work that we do is we take, I think it's 10,000 pieces of data per individual. Tony, you would know this more than I would. It's at least a minimum of 10,000 data points. And we compile it into a software that pre-selects, which individuals would most likely either participate in election or, be individuals that we would want their support. You know, it's
109,000 people in New Hampshire.
what's that?
Oh, we have data on 109,000 people in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, like, and so we take that information, and even though we live in an era where AI and algorithms are fast becoming, designers in and of themselves, like the what's really cool is you can also see in real time the very like human element of going and visiting people on an individual basis and breaking down those barriers and some of those biases. And I'm gonna try not to answer one of my other answers that I think I have for another question that I know, because I almost did, and I was like, wait, no, that's for another question. But what I really like is going door to door and breaking down those barriers and like trying to ask myself, okay, yes, like maybe these people align with us, maybe they don't align with us, but what about them makes them unique? What about them makes them an individual? And I've had incredibly uplifting and surprising conversations with people regardless of their political ideology. And as advantageous as it is to pre-select individuals for the purpose of campaigning and for the purpose of creating a system that most likely increases our chances of garnering their vote, it's still just as advantageous also to have that human to human connection and break down those barriers. Like, yes, we're only targeting typically any campaign 2, 4, 5% of the population. That really makes the difference. Sometimes you can get those interactions that even though we may not even be getting their vote, you still get to immerse yourself in, kind of like what Everett was saying, in a new environment, a new place, a place that you've never been, and you get to reach out and you get to be like, oh yeah, okay, so they own a Toyota Prius, which what, like 95% of liberals, like, or no, 95% of Toyota Prius owners are liberals, and it's like, well, but what about them makes an individual? And so like you can kind of like play with the stereotypes a little bit and break those down, because I love doing that. I think that's my favorite thing about campaigning.
Yeah, very nice. We're probably all gonna have somewhat similar answers, but yeah, what's your favorite reason for, or favorite thing about campaigning, Harry?
Well, the flight was really cool. Never flown before.
First flight ever for Harry.
It was
Got him out
scary
here.
and cramped. Back of the
That's
plane for a tall
wild.
person is not fun, but
No.
It was definitely cool that it was all paid for. The state of New Hampshire is beautiful. The
Yeah.
rivers and the lakes and everything. It's awesome being over here on the East Coast for the first time and just experiencing all the old history.
Yeah.
I'm really into history and just old architecture, and they got old bridges from the 1800s over here and graveyards.
Yeah.
Everything's just so antique. I even door knocked some Boston Tea Party house, and it had the year on it and everything from 17.
Nice.
Something. Yeah, no.
That's so crazy.
I was like, wow, I'm walking on history right now. So, and then I think it's a big confidence building job for sure.
Oh yeah.
Because I guess you could call me an extrovert, but I really truly love just sit and chill out and do my thing, make my music, and kind of zen out. But this puts me out of my comfort zone, which puts me in a better situation for like marketing, networking in person, because that is really important. And then we're also impacting people's lives and just giving them a little bit more information. Yeah, I guess you could say influencing them a little bit, but it feels like it's in the right direction, and that makes me happy. It really does.
Yeah.
And then also just like the I don't know, like it's nice meeting random animals out here while I've been here.
Yeah.
But then you get the big scary dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably one of the least favorite things about campaigning.
Mhm.
Is the big scary dog sometimes.
Beware of dog. You're like, oh,
Yep. We can all relate. But yeah, so we'll move on to Tony. What is your favorite thing about campaigning, Tony?
So my immediate thought is the people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to you guys, how it's like when you talk to people. Like don't get me wrong, door knocking can burn you out if you do it long enough, but if you
Mm-hmm.
do it in short bursts, like I happen to do at the moment, it's usually very, very rewarding and very, it's very exciting for me because you talk to these people and you can make genuine connections with some of them. Sure, a lot of them, they just close the door, they're not interested, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But there's really, really great interactions you have with people, and you get to like hear a part of their life or a part of their beliefs or why they believe it. You get to hear what they know about history, what they know about their beliefs, why they ended up there. I've gone into people's houses and they've offered me like food,
Mm-hmm.
water, Gatorades. It's
Yeah.
been awesome interactions, and people are really friendly. um, there's been some people that I feel bad walking away from, but I have to get
Mm-hmm.
to other doors, and it's like you
Yeah.
just love like interacting with these people that you just get to walk up to, and you just walk up to their door, and they're just chilling at their house, and they just come out and talk to you, and it's a lot of fun. I think it's probably the best part of doing it because when you talk to these people and you get them to know that hey, this guy exists, he believes this, I'm out here knocking for him for that reason. That's always a lot of fun, especially because it's like it's also like Harry said there. It helps you with social anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
like a lot.
yeah.
When I first got here, I was very much in a shell. I was a very introverted person, and after door knocking, and what it builds is it removes your fear of rejection. I
Mm-hmm.
think is the best way to
Yep.
describe it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're walking up to a door and you get the door slammed in your face, it's like okay, and you move on and you start becoming callous of it,
Yep.
and
Like,
it
wow.
just becomes
Oh.
like it's whatever. So like after that, walking up to
Yeah.
some girl at the club or whatever doesn't fucking matter. Like who cares? And
Mm-hmm.
and it's great because it builds you as a person also. Like
Mm-hmm.
Everett said, also it helps you with like getting a broader worldview. Because
Mm-hmm.
all of these people, like people in New Hampshire, have a vastly different culture than
Mm-hmm.
El Paso.
Yep.
El Paso people just keep to themselves. Like out here,
Mm,
people wave to you. It's like a mini like heart of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
People give a shit to talk to you at a gas station, stuff like that. It's really cool. And like I wouldn't have ever known that about New Hampshire. If I'm being honest, before I came down here, I never even had a thought about New Hampshire. I didn't care about New Hampshire. I knew New Hampshire existed, but I probably said the word New Hampshire like twice in my life. And I've lived here a year now,
yeah.
and I honestly want to live here because it's just like Harry said, it's beautiful. There's history everywhere, like around every
Mhm.
corner. Like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, is where
Oh
Paul
yeah.
Revere rode
Mm-hmm.
in to warn everyone about the British.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's just
Crazy.
casually sitting there in a house. Um, so that's really cool, and I really enjoy like those small moments because like everyone said, it's not something you want to do your whole life, but there
Mm-hmm.
is a career
Mm,
path to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you
yeah.
door knock, you start meeting people that matter, and once you show that you're capable of doing more than door knocking, they start asking you to do other jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you become part of this political machine.
Mhm.
I personally want to do political work the rest of my life, so this has been amazing. So like the people are amazing. I don't think there's been any campaign whatsoever where I haven't had at least one or two great interactions throughout the day that keep me going.
Mm-hmm.
That's hands down my favorite part is just the people, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Agreed.
it can go both ways, but those really good interactions, they do stick with you. And that kind of rolls into the next question here, which is tell us one story that sticks out to you with a voter. And for me, there are so many good interactions that I've had that I'm starting to forget them. Unfortunately, I need to start writing these things down. But one
I
that
know.
really sticks out to me happened just a couple weeks ago. Is in a part of the campaign where it was a kind of a downturn and didn't have the most morale. We were still out there doing everything we could, but my morale was just at a very low point. And I get up to this voter's house, and it's just like any other house. You knock on it. This middle-aged woman comes out, and we end up getting into a good discussion about the current state of affairs, politics in the country, and everything. And obviously, we're having a good conversation. We're agreeing on stuff, and then towards the end of it, or it was only like halfway through at this point, but it was more towards the end. But she asked if she could pray for me, and it was I obviously said yes, because I'm a religious person. I'm Protestant. I don't go to church too much. I should go more, but this is just a time where I really needed it, and her prayer was just so on point. It was something like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was just like, Lord, make sure Everett, that he has a righteous way ahead of him with the doors he's going to knock, and make sure to clear all those demons and all that negative energy out so that he can do your work and do it as best as possible. And obviously I'm not saying as good as she did, but it was literally
That's
at the
amazing.
it was at the moment, it was where I was just bottomed out, and that's what I needed. It was like about 3:00 in the day. I still had a few hours left to go, and that cranked me it stirred my passion up, and I was ready to hit every last door of the day that I could. And it's just times like that are marked back, and it really shows you are in the right place at the right time when something like that happens. And it's just there's no better feeling than it. It really is one of the most what's a good word for it? Uplifting, impactful times of your life. Being out here talking to a stranger that is just completely with you, and that you can trust them and they can trust you, and it's just it's just magical. Yeah. It really is magical, and that was my one experience. Like I said, I got a lot more, but that was one that really stuck out to me, at least on this campaign that I've been on. So.
That's awesome. I do want to say that's another really cool thing about this job, is that I've made lifelong friends. All of you on here, I trust with my life, and I met you guys months ago. So
yes.
It's really cool.
Yes, always be good with that, Stody. Always.
Yeah.
But so we'll move on to you, Anthony. So tell us one story that really sticks out to you, an interaction that you had with a voter that you'll never forget.
Okay, I'll try to stick it down to one story.
I know, right? There's so many.
So I think I'd have to say the one that actually happened more recently. God, I have plenty of stories I could tell, but this was the one that kind of popped in my head first. I don't know if I know I told you guys this, Everett and Harry, but I door knocked one of the days you dropped me off. It was just a couple of days ago, actually. At the very beginning of the day, it was maybe my second or third house that I hit. It was nestled back in a cul-de-sac, and I'm sure this was on purpose. It was a former Fed's house. It was a really cool. I don't think you've heard this story, Tony. It's a really cool husband and wife Fed couple, and they answer the door, and I just start chit-chatting. It's like a normal take, whatever. He comes to the door first, and then she ended up being the main conversationalist and joined me on the front porch there, and it was a beautiful brick home in Wolfboro, just up from Mitt Romney's summer home, right on that harbor there. And we're standing there chit-chatting, and they end up telling, I finally got the balls to ask them what kind of Fed they were, because we were sitting there. I was like, what kind of Feds were you? And they're like, oh, CIA, just real casual. And I was just like, oh, it's CIA, okay. So I was like, you guys can read body language then, and my palms are even starting to sweat right now telling the story, because I started to get just regularly nervous. I was like, oh, so they're able to read me, and they can tell when I'm lying, because they're all trained in deception, psychology and stuff like that. And so I'm just like, oh shit, okay, so this is a real I'm really glad I haven't lied so far, during the tape.
You're an honest guy, man. You're fine.
And so it ended up being, they told me that they worked there for 40 years, and I asked them questions about what they knew about what was going on right now with the current engagements within the CIA, and I was like, so you guys might have even insider information as to like how and what's going on within the DNC. And they were like, yes, but I mean, we can tell you it's nothing good, and I was just like, okay, that's like kind of a scary, terrifying answer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and mm, and she ended up talking with me maybe for like 30 minutes, and I
Nice.
told her, we talked about the CCP, and we talked about how like they were probably the greatest like intelligence threat to the United States, and how they operate, so like a bit very very much like a big problem. And I talked about Mike Pompeo because he used to be their boss, and he's a Kansas guy, uh, and he was one of the biggest Trump loyalists to the Trump administration because he could hardly hold his cabinet together. And a lot of that is for good reason too, because half the cabinet shouldn't really even exist. But
None of it.
yeah, like, but it was like one of those really cool conversations, and we ended up like just hanging out for a while, and it left me with a lot more questions. Like I could have been able to sit there and like talk with them the entire day, but I had never met. I mean, they both got their jobs in 1979. So they worked from 1979 all the way up until I think they said 2017 was when they retired. So it was like almost 40 years. It's like it blew my mind. That was so cool.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
awesome.
you telling me about that when you got in the car, and that that kind
Yeah.
of blew my mind. I think I met a CIA guy too out here. We didn't chat about it too long because he was working at the time, and I was like, oh, okay, thank you for your service. I'll leave you with the literature. But it's cool. It's crazy the diversity of people you meet out here. And that's another one I wanted to say just real quick. I met the lady from My Big Fat Greek Wedding out here. She lives in New Hampshire over in the Derry area, I believe.
So
Wasn't it
cool.
Seabrook? Yeah, didn't you meet someone like that, Anthony, in Seabrook?
In Seabrook, like a famous actor or
Yeah.
something.
Oh no, that was you, Everett. I think it
Yeah,
might have been
yeah.
Seabrook.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I think it was Seabrook. Yeah, you're right. Um, yeah,
That's so
that
cool.
was great, and I didn't even know either when I was talking to her. But she was, after I knew who she was, it would completely fit her. The whole house was like yelling at each other. It was so Greek, so like
Uh,
southeastern European. Just all the spice. At the time, and she was like, oh, you're Republican, right? And I was like, yes, I'm Republican. And she was like, oh, I don't have a congressman sign out here. Okay, I'll take yours. It's like, all right, there we go. So that was cool. But
That's awesome.
yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, so yeah, we'll move on to Harry. I know you haven't been out here for too long because he's only been door knocking about 2.5 weeks now. But in those 2.5 weeks, what's the coolest interaction that you had with a voter? Or I guess we can even say coolest interaction if you remember anything from your Yale time when you were out
Yeah.
tabling and whatnot. So what's the best experience?
Okay. Man, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I guess. What was it? I think we were trying to do like a free speech ball at the college
Oh
years ago.
yeah, I did lots of those
But
too.
I love that.
yeah, you could just see all the liberal side on the wall and the small conservative side. You're just like, oh. But but here in New Hampshire, someone also prayed for me. I guess just
Hmm.
a second.
Oh,
That was a really nice thing. This lady with like three dogs, and I think Everett was having a bad morale day the same day.
Hmm.
Like it was really close to each other. I don't know. It was just a weird week. It was raining.
Oh
Like
yeah, the first week out
yeah.
here.
Um, but I met what's her name? Katie Petter.
yeah.
Paternal? Oh yeah, one of the people that
Yeah.
we were knocking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to
Yeah.
pronounce her last name.
I met her while I was scootering through a neighborhood, and I was knocking a door, and I hear this lady yell behind me. She's like, "Oh, they're not home right now." I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. I'm just dropping off some pamphlets." And I start to scoot away, and she's like, "Who you canvassing for?" I was like, "Tim Baxter, one of the main guys." And then I'm like, and she says, she's like, oh, I'm Katie, you know. And I'm like, oh, hold on. And I go across the street and I start talking to her, and she's like, how'd you get out here? Like, where are you from? Clearly, she could tell like I'm look a little bit different from the locals. Um, yeah, and so she had a whole bunch of signs in the back of her car, and I asked her, I'm like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, this is my house. And I'm like, oh, that's such a coincidence, you know. It's seeing all these Katie signs all around this neighborhood, you know. She's all hitting it super hard, but I don't know. I think that was just a really cool experience. It wasn't a long conversation, you know. It was just like, hi, like, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Meeting candidates is so fun when it's spontaneous.
Yeah,
like that.
it's definitely surreal, you know. It's like, oh, you're meeting the real people who are out here doing this, and I'm glad like I could put a face on that person, like in real life, you know, not just see like an ad or a flyer
Yeah.
on TV or Facebook or something.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest experiences to be able to meet candidates. Yeah, back in 2018, I was knocking for Michael Yakovovich, and while I was knocking, he was also going around the neighborhood, and we like met up together. He was like, "Oh, who are you knocking for?" I was like, "Knocking for you." And we actually we went and did a couple doors together, and it was also a surreal experience. You know, actually door knocking with the person who I was sent there to represent. You know, is so cool. But yeah, so it's always cool to meet candidates when you're out on this kind of work. But all right, so we move on to you, Tony. What is your most impactful experience with a voter that you've ever had, or experience with someone that you've brought into politics, or anything like that? What,
yeah. I mean, like Anthony Orwick said, there's so many that come into my head. I've been doing this, like I said, about 2.5 years. For the first year, I was door knocking exclusively, and then after that, I've been managing people. So as I mentioned, I have a bit of a hunger for door knocking because I'm always doing office work or managing people or whatever it may be. So one specific campaign that I'm very proud of, last year, Hazlitt Action made sure to get constitutional carry passed in Texas. That was my proudest campaign because I led a team that knocked most of Texas, and we got it through, and we pressured different senators and state reps that were very weak on voting yes for it. It was a lot of fun. We got to target the Speaker of the House, specifically, like just threw these politicians into the mud, and it was great. So I really enjoyed that, and there was a point where I was like, I haven't knocked a door, and we're gonna leave in like a week. So I want to knock doors. So one day I made sure to get everyone set up so I could go and knock doors. I was knocking doors regularly. It was just, you know, it was nice conversations, most of them, but I didn't have anything super special. And I remember parking my car, and I remember very specifically every detail about this interaction because it was just so wild. I got out of my car and I walked up to the house because it was just like it was like a cul-de-sac of like 3 houses, and I was just getting out of my car. I parked it in like a corner, and I was walking over to this house. And as I'm walking up to it, there's this lady outside, and she's like tending to her bushes. And I see that there's a Gadsden flag in the yard, and I'm just like, oh, these people are on it. They're about this already. So I walk up to this lady, and I'm just like, hi, you know, I'm canvassing for constitutional carry. We want to see it passed in Texas. We want to make sure you pressure your state rep and your senator. And she stops and she's like, hold on, my husband's gonna love you. And I'm just like, okay. And she's like, yeah, I'll take your pamphlet, but we've already, I texted, and she was texting him the whole time that she was talking to me, and she just goes, yeah, we've already not only been reaching out to him, we've been going to his office, we're telling all of our friends and our family to, like, call him and tell him that he's, like, you know, he's garbage, and he needs to make sure to vote for it. And it was great. They were already activists. So her husband comes out eventually. So as I'm walking away, I kind of gave up that her husband was going to come out, and I start walking away after we finished talking, and I'm just like, okay, whatever, you know, I didn't think her husband was going to actually come outside. And I'm walking away, and he comes outside very excitingly, opens the door, and I'm just like, okay. And this man comes up to me, and he's like, are you the one that's knocking for constitutional carry? And I'm just like, yeah. And he goes like, oh my God, like this needs to happen all across America. Like, this is amazing. And he grabs me and he hugs me, like very, very strongly. And he starts crying. And I'm just like, holy shit. And he's just
Wow.
like, this needs to happen, like, with so many more young people. Like, you're inspiring, you're amazing, God, you're doing God's work. And he just starts like ranting to me about how amazing it was of what we were doing and how
Oh
impactful it
my
is
god.
that we're helping this legislation through. And I genuinely felt a lot of love from this man. Like, he was very excited to see me doing this. And I treasure that moment very much so, because it was like, it was mind blowing. A total stranger, because he knew what I was doing. Like you said, they trust you in an instant, and they just immediately have such love for you because they know that you're in the same ideology.
Right.
And it was great. It was very wholesome. I remember that man to this day. I don't know where his house was, but it was great. And yeah, he was just like, yeah, not only I'll take your pamphlet, but I'll call again just for you guys. And he was just like, it was an amazing experience. I will never forget that, man, for sure.
There you go, man.
Where
That's
in
what.
Texas were you again, Tony?
That was in San Antonio.
San Antonio. Okay, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we went to San Antonio. My team was in San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth and Arlington. Those were the 5 cities that we hit.
Oh, is that all? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I wish it
Very
was more,
nice.
but I was only there a month, so.
Yeah.
That's still like, yeah, that's like most of Texas.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, there was like, I think there was like 6 or 7 other teams in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, those experiences are really what this job's all about. It's just you get such heartwarming interactions, and it really touches you down to your core, you know, like
I had
touches your soul, your
Everett.
spirit. It's a full organism interaction. I don't know, like it's just
Yeah. I had one story I was gonna tell real quick. When I met one of the candidates, we ended up having to like stop doing her campaign out in Minnesota because she ended up being like not as much of a strategic choice, so we had to drop her as a candidate, unfortunately. Marianne Stebbins, like, freaking love you. Uh, we were door knocking, and I was like walking down the street, and it was like the very tail end of the day, and this was when Mike Anderson was managing our team. And she pulls up in a Hummer, and she's getting out because she's door knocking too, and we were door knocking the same street for her, and she's getting out of the car, and I'm like standing there like with her lit in my hand, and I'm literally just like, I'm staring at her, you know, because you're in fight or flight mode. You're always aware of pulling up cars, you know, like car. And it was her. It was literally like Marianne. I was like, oh my God, Marianne! Like, and I took it as a moment to like introduce myself. She was driving a Humvee. I hopped in the Humvee with her, and we ended up going to the bars, and I left one of my walk books early. Like, I had like 7 more houses or whatever, and Mike calls me. He's so mad. He's like, what'd you do, like abandoning the walk book so early, you know? And I was literally just like, oh, I'm in the van, like with the candidate. And he's like, you're with the candidate? Like, and he's like starting to freak out. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're gonna go out for drinks. And he's like, what are you doing? He was so mad, and I think he hung up the phone. I was just like, Mike, if you're listening, I'm sorry I didn't get to finish that walk today. But it was hilarious.
If Mike's watching, we love you, Mike. Hi.
much love. Love to all the Liberty
We ended up
Homies.
going out, I think, that night to go and like have drinks or whatever. But that was cool. That was up in the lakes, one of the more lakey districts around the Minneapolis metro, like near Chanhassen and whatnot. And that was cool. But,
Very nice. Very nice. All right, so we got 2 questions left here. So this is getting a little more serious now. So next question is, how do you feel about the current state of the world? So in my opinion, if you've been watching the episodes on this show, you kind of understand what's been going on. The Western world is deteriorating under our feet. It is collapsing below us, and liberalism is dying. True liberty is dying throughout the world. Authoritarianism is rising, especially ever since the COVID pandemic. And I think it's just going to be so easy for them to start another lockdown pandemic or climate emergency, whatever they want to do. You know, these globalist, elitist people who just want to control people as if they're dirt to be fucking, sown, you know. So it's not looking good right now from the moment, but I do think we will come out of this within a decade or two, hopefully. But I think we are about to live through some really dark times, and this will go into my next answer. But yeah, it's the state of the world is just it's collapsing right now. Our way of life is going to change. It's already rapidly changed since 2019, and it's going to continue on that path. And that's why I'm out here. That's probably why all you are out here. We are trying to save the country, trying to save the principles on which it stood. Individual liberty, personal responsibility. What the founders really thought and laid out for us. Obviously they had their mistakes, but they did set a good foundation in the ground for us, and it is all being toppled down. And not just here in America, but Europe. Europe is falling right now, and it's so frustrating. And we got a joke on the campaign that we're the last line of defense before some really heavy stuff starts happening. So if we can't convince people a certain way, things are just going to devolve into war, for lack of a better way to say it. Not that we would start it or anybody we hate, but it's got to a boiling point, and I really do think the next few years are going to be really rough. So hopefully we can get through them, and hopefully what we're doing now can slow down the process. So got a little dark, but yeah, we'll see what you feel about the world, Anthony. So what do you think about the current state of the world that we're in right now?
So I want to be careful before I answer this, because it's important how we frame uh our worldview
Mm-hmm.
when especially when we as activists are performing our job. Like, it's one thing, and this is obviously, this is my opinion, it's one thing for us to go out here every day and do what we do, and making sure that we, kind of like what you were saying, we're the last line of defense in defending the inalienable rights that have been outlined for us. And I do believe that, absolutely. I like to approach this answer from more of like a human geographical perspective, because that's my background, is human
Mm.
geography. And what's really cool about that is I can kind of tilt the lens a little bit when it comes to how I view change in human, in human evolution. Instead of over a period of time, I can view it over a period of space,
Mm.
and I can recognize and look back at history, and look at history instead of using time as a variable. I can use space as a variable. So what's fun about doing that is I can see and examine how human empires and the strongest like countries have shaped and sculpted themselves over time. So it's no doubt that right now we're in a period of tumult. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have a lot of opportunities with technology advancing the way it is right now to uh, build and create a stronger world. I think it's very important that the people who are programmers become first and foremost philosophers. Um, I think it's very important also that programmers understand human psychology, uh, and that's going to become more and more important. The ethicists don't really talk about this as much, but it's really important to create a kind of like programming ethics, I think, as we advance forward, because if we are to understand AI to be, what it should be, it's also extremely important not to, throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to all the progress that especially we as Americans in the United States have made in rebelling against tyranny.
Mm.
It's astonishing to me that even the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, having passed away, that the British monarchy, still has so much of a grasp on humanity. Like, that's baffling to me. That's like very surprising to me. But as libertarians and as liberty-minded thinkers, I think the state of the world is ultimately still going in the right direction. There is an innate fight for the human spirit that I think always trumps evil, in terms of like, evil having its grip. But our biggest opponent are the consequences of that evil. So you can ask anyone who lives east of the old Iron Curtain what that looks
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Europeans have a really good example. Also Africans that have been colonized, South Americans that have been colonized,
Mm-hmm.
also have a very good understanding of what it's like to be subjugated on a mass level. And I think that's where our biggest fight is going. And looking at the way population is going to be changing over the next 50 to 100 years, Africa is going to become the predominant continent in which most of the world's population is going to be the most fast growing. And also I think by 2100 you're looking at like Nigeria as is like in the top 3 most populous countries. um I am not a Malthusian when it comes to believing that, oh, like, the world is overpopulated.
Mm-hmm. No,
I
yeah, me
believe that
either. No.
if you look at a map and you take the density of the city of Paris and you put the entirety of the global population in the same density as Paris, I think it would be about the size of Texas. Like, and I'm gonna try to find the map that delineates that. But that's what we're talking about when it comes to, like, overpopulation is so not a risk, and that's what the fear mongers want you to think, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want you to procreate, because the fewer people that you have, the easier it is for you to, be enslaved. The easier it is for you to, like, lose your individual identity. In that sense, it's like, or the easier it is for you to, yeah. And so I don't buy any of the fear mongering there. And it's important to always stay grounded, and I think that the foundation of the United States, like, best exemplifies the kind of a future moving forward. But I do agree with you, Everett, that I do believe that the United States is one of the last bastions,
Mm-hmm.
on a global level too. And it's really important that other countries, because I had the luxury of hosting, back at University of Kansas. We hosted Nigerian delegation that came to the University of Kansas, and they visited from abroad, and they wanted to learn about our constitutional
Mm-hmm.
process. And that's something that is very novel to a lot of folks. Representative democracy, having something, our system of government is a constitutional republic, having that as the foundation for how to approach issues and disagreements that happen within a given population is so important to spread, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to maintain. And I think that's something that's going to persevere through time and place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
At
no,
least I'd like
it.
to.
I think it definitely will. Like I was saying, I think it's gonna. We're in a downturn of human society, but it's gonna come back up. And it's gonna be better than it ever has been before. But we're gonna have to
Yeah,
live through a little bit of shit first, just like our parents did, just like our grandparents did, just like their parents before them. It's a generational kind of conflict that everybody's got to go through at least once in their lives,
yeah,
and for some people more than once, unfortunately. But this is the battle of
yeah,
our time. So yeah.
On that overpopulation point, a lot of the world is actually underpopulated. A
Mm,
lot of
yeah.
states are actually worried about the output of the citizens that they're getting. There's a lot of states that try to control it. Like I think it was China, they had like a 1 or 2 child rule, and now they are rolling that back hardcore because they're realizing
Mm-hmm.
that they don't have enough citizens to fill their workload anymore. And it's like it's
yeah.
a whole mess. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
So move on to Harry. So it'd probably be a little bit similar, but what do you think, or what do you feel is the current state of the world? Where are we headed? Is there any hope? Is there any
Mm.
reason to not despair?
Um. Well, I mean, I've always had a lot of hope. I always try to see the best in humanity, But I think a lot of what's happening right now in the United States is really concerning, especially with I don't know, the LGBTQ agenda being pushed upon children in schools. I don't like sexualizing children and even teaching them that. That is just morally, and I see that as kind of wrong. Like people should not be teaching children that like they're not ready. Like I didn't even think about that stuff when I,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
just trying to shape someone into somebody that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
I could even go into the connection of, oh, that's a type of population control because um could just dive deeper into that. But
Mm-hmm.
same with like all of the bias against each other. Like we're all pushing these agendas, and we're not meeting in the middle or even seeing eye to eye and just being able to agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there's something really wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with these social online platforms where you could just say whatever the hell you want when you want. Like there's no repercussion anymore. So people are starting to act more irrationally and applying that sort of thinking and lifestyle in their reality,
Mm-hmm.
like in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is leading to, I don't know, demoralization. People care less about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like before COVID happened, like you'd walk by someone on the street, and I'd get someone to say hi. I'd say like 8 times out of 10, but now it's like a 3 out of 10 because
Mm-hmm.
everybody was dehumanized. They lost that part
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and some people are still relearning how to use that. The same with the kids that had to go through COVID. They are learning facial expressions because they missed out on 2 years. Imagine being a 4-year old and now they're 2 years behind
That
socially.
is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Other thing about the world, it feels like we're coming up on another World War III with Russia. Just all these little baby steps with Ukraine and us funding Ukraine and Putin just
Mm-hmm.
poking the border over there. Like it's just a very there's a lot of tension in that area, and then you have the Taiwan situation,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know, and how we're consistently monitoring that country right now, and they're doing certain.
Oh, we
Oh,
lost Harry for a second.
Oh,
Very.
Oh, okay, you're back.
there.
You're back. Oh, we lost him again. Are you sure you're not
God
muted,
damn
Harry?
it!
Maybe bring your phone closer. Um,
Here,
yeah.
hold on.
Oh, there he
Okay, there you
is.
go. There you go.
Okay,
You're
all
good.
right. Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I was gonna say that Taiwan had like this. They're doing some like routine training out in the ocean, like
Mm-hmm.
around their in their waters, and this ship they're shooting missiles, I think, at resembled a U.S. Carrier ship,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they're practicing. Yeah.
Oh
and
yeah,
that's just
China was doing that.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
China, yeah, China, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just really intimidating to
Mm-hmm.
see that happening in my lifetime. Um, I mean, other than that, I try. I mean, that's why I've always made music. Like, I started like going to concerts and like hanging out with people who have like a like-minded, thought process, and there's a lot of love in that community. There's a lot of culture, and you get to see what humans are really like without any restraints, without the worries of being at your job or the worries of
Hmm.
the world. Like the weight is lifted off your shoulders, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to experience that happiness that brings you. And that's why I became like a producer and a DJ, is to give that love and that happiness back. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of goodness in people, and
Mm-hmm.
I really want to look in that direction, for
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
rest of my life, because if I didn't, it I would just be a really negative Nancy about everything.
It would
Yeah.
eat you
Yeah.
alive.
Probably be depressed. Yeah, it would.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet it really does eat some people alive because they don't have that release. Like
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's a good point you brought up, Harry, because we don't only have to focus on the political aspect, but also the cultural aspect, because we're all humans, we're all trying to get through this, and might as well have a good time while we're doing it, and we just have to,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
obviously we're all biased here towards the idea of liberty, but I really do believe that that's the way people can enjoy most of their rights, most of their pleasure that they get out of life, and can make it a little bit better if we follow those principles. But yeah, so we'll move on to you, Tony. What do you think about the current state of the world? Do we have hope for the future? Is there a reason not to despair?
Well, for me, my self motivation is I have a 6-year-old daughter, Leah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
She is like I want the world to be like a better place, a more free place for her to be able to experience the world. Because when I think about it, like in her school, they made her wear a mask, and me and her mom disagree on that, and that's fine. But like just the thought that the government is coming in and telling my kid what to do makes me just ridiculously upset. And
yeah.
like the authoritarianism in general is I did like I think one of you guys said you guys always had a problem with authority. That's where my beliefs also come from a little bit, because if someone's telling me something and they're just saying because I said so, I'm going to question, well, why? Because you said so. Like there's got to be some kind of logic. You have to have a point. um, so when I look at the world really these days, I just I try to stay hopeful, because like at the end of the day, I believe that freedom is the way to go. Like we all said, liberty is amazing. That is the goal. Because self autonomy versus the government telling you what to do is always better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So really, like looking at the world, sadly, I do have a more negative outlook on where it's going. I do think there's hope for us to steer it back correctly, but I do think I agree with Everett that it is going in a negative place at the moment. Like the tensions between nations is ridiculous at the moment. Like China, Russia, everyone, like we're currently bombing people all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the millions, and it's like no one calls us out, but we try to call all these other places out, and it's like everyone needs to be called out and
Mm-hmm.
everyone has a part
hmm
in this.
Yeah,
um
hypocrisy.
there's just like ridiculous things happening where like we're trying to drone strike one dude and then we drone strike a family, like Obama killing some kid because he was trying to get some other target and he killed the whole family just because
Mm-hmm.
he felt like it, like it's ridiculous. Personally, I just really think that all of it just it needs to somehow get on the right path. I do think that these days, I don't know if maybe it's because I'm in an echo chamber, but I try to break it as much as possible. But it does look like the liberty movement is growing dramatically.
Yeah.
People before just didn't really care about freedom. I think COVID woke a lot of people up to the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the government controls our lives. And I think that's a good thing, because liberty needs to be understood by the populace as much as possible. That like the government can't do everything for you. It can't solve all of your problems. Sure, there's a lot of liberals that think it can, and that's a lot of where the world is right now. I found that there's a very big misunderstanding between each side, because the left wants good things, but they're not getting there in the way that I personally, maybe it's just me, but a lot of us don't see it as the right way to do so. um, like for example, that they say we want free healthcare, which it sounds cool in a bubble, like yeah sure we all get doctors, but when you put it into practice, you're taking people's money that may not need healthcare. Like you and I, all of us here are in our 20s. We don't need to see a doctor every day. We don't need to do any of that, and they're taking our money to go and help someone that does need
Mm-hmm.
it, and on paper
Yeah.
that sounds great. But what about some person that's out there getting like, whatever random procedure that they just feel they need to, and that's just taking our money? Not only that, the government doesn't do anything correctly ever. The VA is a great example of that.
Yeah.
There's so many things that the government is doing these days in every country, not just ours, that is ridiculous. There's some that are slaughtering people, sterilizing people. And I think the only way we can really get any of this on track is if people wake up. There's a frustrating amount of people that just don't care. They're just going about their lives, and sure that they're entitled to worry about what their kid's going to eat. How am I going to pay this next bill? Oh, my electric bill is high, type of thing, and that's their priorities. They don't care about helping the world be freer, which is fair. But what I think we can do is get their small attention span for a little bit, just to vote the right way that we think is going to actually help this cause.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think our job matters so much,
Mm-hmm.
because we get their attention at a door. And if we call these people, if we text these people, they don't care. They're just going to ignore it. And they're just like, oh, it's politics. And they just
Mm-hmm.
ignore it. But when you're in their face and you have their moment for that, like that little bit of time, it matters so much. It's so vital,
Mm-hmm.
because people cannot be bothered these days. They really can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Especially after
people are in
COVID.
such a little bubble of their own world. Justifyingly, they have worlds to worry about, that they don't care about the state of politics. They don't care about, oh, is this person liberty? Is this person an authoritarian? They only care those last 2 days before election day.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it even comes down to
Last
causes,
2
people
days.
don't think about if they want constitutional carry. They don't think if they want school choice. They don't think, hey, I can, school choice is awesome. Like, you can literally have your tax dollars get sent to the school you want to send your kid to. And I think that's awesome. And like, those things benefit our society, but no one takes action on these things. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that really comes down to like where we come in, and we have to go and wake these people up. Podcasts like this is awesome
Mm-hmm.
because it's reaching people and it's helping people like understand our point of view. A lot of the right is demonized these days because the left is, especially recently, what they do is they've been naming really poorly written bills, really triggering words. For example, like the Inflation Reduction Act, even though it's not going to reduce inflation, they can go out and say Republicans are voting against inflation reduction. Or like the burn pit bill recently is like, oh, they're voting against healthcare for veterans for burn pits, but they don't talk about the additional spending that's been added to the bill, and that's why we're going against it, because you're taking people's money. And they just frame it in a way that makes people hate each other so much
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't help the situation whatsoever. Or
No.
like even recently, like like the gay rights bill that just went through the House. Some Republicans voted against it because it's unconstitutional. It's written poorly, and even as a bisexual person myself, I want us to be able to get married in every state. But that doesn't mean that it needs to be a poorly written bill or an unconstitutionally written bill. And people don't take the time to look at these nuances of what matters in these bills. They just see, oh, the Democrats titled it the gay rights
Mm-hmm.
bill, so you're against gay rights? Oh, you're a bigot, and that's all that it is. And that's really frustrating. Waking these people up is, I think, the most important thing we can do in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it better than I ever could, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll get to the last question here. It's going along. But so here's the last one. So in your opinion, what is the number one issue the USA is facing? It's a little similar to the last one, but I'm probably gonna give a real short answer just because it's real simple. The too many people are ignorant and arrogant about what's going on. They don't know what's happening, and they're arrogant about what they know, and they think that they know everything that can be known. Ignorance is just it's a very strong emotion. Some people they get so overwhelmed with information they just turn off, and then they don't accept anything. And you can get very prone to somebody controlling you at that point. When you don't know what's going on, somebody can control you, and that's what we need to fight against. We need to enlighten people. We need to illuminate the truth here. That has been my primary goal. That my number one value is honesty and the truth, and finding that and not lying to people about things. And it goes along with everything that you said. If people were just a little more dialed in, knew what was going on, I don't think we'd have as many problems as we do. But since people are so caught up in their own things and their own lives, obviously it's not a bad thing to be caught up in your own life. Obviously we all have problems and issues to deal with, but you really as an adult, as a person who is in this world, you need to know what's going on, and you need to know what's best for not only yourself but your family and those you care about around you. So, and that's what we're doing out here with door knocking. It's really bringing the information to the people, changing hearts and minds, and there's really nothing more effective than what we're doing out here. So
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. We're doing a good job, and I know there's a lot of people in this state doing a good job, not only in the state but across the country right now, doing their damnness to get the truth out there and really make sure people know what's going on. So I hope we can encourage more of that with things like this, things like door knocking, calls, in culture like Harry is doing with his DJing. We need to do everything we can to bring everybody into our sphere, and not just so they can be on our side, but so we can live in reality and get through this all together the best we can. So that's my answer on this. So I hope that substitutes for a good answer. But anyways, we'll move on to you, Anthony. So in your opinion, what is the number one issue facing America or the USA?
So I think there are three answers here, and they all tie together, and it all relates kind of the same thing. But if we're talking about a foreign threat, I do think it's the Chinese Communist Party. I think that the panopticon that they have constructed is so utterly horrifying. I think that is probably one of the most terrifying. Like in all of my knowledge that I have of studying changes in world history, the 1.4 billion people that now populate the country of China are going to have to are struggling through something that no one in human history has ever experienced, which is the closest thing to an absolutist totalitarian state. And I think that is writ large one of our largest obstacles, and one of our biggest threats of humanity is ever allowing something like that to even take place, like here in the United States. Do I think the United States is anywhere near something like that? Absolutely not. But there are inklings, here and there that are contributing to it. And the biggest problem, I think, is freedom of information. Limitations on the First Amendment rights, and limitations on free speech, limitations on our capacity to intermingle with each other, any kind of limitation that includes poorly constructed algorithms that are kind of creating false echo chambers or false channels of information that present only certain things to us that we ourselves are not organically pursuing. That's a problem, because that's a form of, in my opinion, that is a form of mind control. Any kind of limitations on interactions with free speech online, like, yes, you have private platforms that can make determinations as to what you can and cannot do within their platforms, but that's why it's so important to create like things like Discord, for example, where you have more open space. I don't know what Discord's rules of engagement are. I don't even know if it's monitored or whatever. But I think that moves in the right direction. Any kind of open source technology, 3D printing of weaponry, I think is a great solution to restrictions on Second Amendment, things like that. And then the third and I think our biggest problem when it comes to economics is the Federal Reserve System, obviously.
Yeah, based. Yes.
I think that the devaluation of the American dollar is the biggest problem that has ever faced Americans inside our country. I think it's worse than in any kind of control with information online. And the reason being is because it is so protected and it is so falsely sanctified by those in power that anyone who tries to even have a conversation about it is like dwarfed by the monolith of the creation of the Fed itself, and the fact that it's allied with the Department of Treasury and overshadowed by the Department of Treasury is even more of an insult to the American people. And it impacts each and every one of us that lives in a culture, because I think American culture has become a lot more work centric, a lot more like, work crazy. And I think that's so insulting when we have to live in a society that is, run by the Federal Reserve, where the Federal Reserve is so heavily involved in the creation and the valuation of our dollar. I think that's absurd. And I think it's a huge insult to anyone who tries to pursue their own path. And I think it's the biggest threat to liberty.
I agree. All that.
Ron Paul would love that.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll move on to you, Harry. What do you think is the number one issue facing the U.S.? Oh, we can't hear you again.
Oh no, come back.
Yeah, maybe
All right.
yeah,
Oh
move your
no,
phone
no, he's
closer.
breaking up.
There.
Hold on.
Oh, we lost
What?
him. No, there he
Okay.
is.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
we can hear you. Yeah, probably just
Good?
hold your
Okay.
phone close. Yeah.
All right. So, I think just the inflation is a really big problem right now. Going to the store here in New Hampshire, like same in California, like I'm witnessing, shelves that are like front stocked, everything else in the back of the shelves are gone
It's
essentially
empty.
because
Yeah.
stores are just ordering what they need, for their supply. Um, it's just kind of scary to see that slowly happening. Clearly there's still a good amount of things in the stores, but it's kind of crazy to witness that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think another one would also be just the energy here in
Mm-hmm.
the United States.
Yeah,
They just
energy
closed
crisis.
down, or they're trying to close down Diablo Canyon, which is in our local area in California.
Nuclear power plant.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of controversy over nuclear power, but
It's the
in
cleanest
my
form of
opinion, I
energy.
think yes. And a lot of people don't understand the background, what happens with the waste, and how safely it's stored, and people are thinking it's just gonna leak all over the environment when that's not the case at all.
Right,
You know.
right.
And then focusing on California at least specifically, when we're having these big storms, high wind storms, they're not threatening. They're telling us, "Oh, there's a storm coming." The local power company goes, "Oh, we might shut your power off in a couple days," and
That's unreal.
it might stay off, for however long the storm is. And you got Governor Newsom over here saying, "Oh, we're banning the sale of gas powered cars by the year 2035
Can't
when
even.
we have these circumstances of, oh, you can't even charge your car because there's a storm coming."
That's the point. I think that's the
So
point.
if you hook those two and two together, my brain just goes like,
Dumb.
oh, we don't have enough energy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
even with
goes the whole
oil.
course. Yeah, energy,
Yeah.
food, well, people energy, which is food.
hmm
E-
the
and-
Biden administration has definitely put a whole bunch of bullshit onto the environmental part of everything. When he got elected, I can't remember how many things what are they called? He put through
Executive
after
orders.
Executive order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like 40 of them, and a lot of them had to do with you know um, energy, clean energy, and shutting down like certain fracking and just how we access our energy. And that's not good because our society runs off of petroleum,
Mm-hmm.
electricity, and it will not survive. At least now, we will collapse if something happens to that. So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah.
Nuclear.
Definitely.
hmm
Nuclear.
Yeah, we
Nuclear.
do need we like that. That's all we need. If we just had nuclear, everything would be fine. But they've pushed against nuclear the past few decades and
It's
made it.
also green, so like
Yeah, exactly.
there's like zero waste these days.
Mm-hmm. Then
hmm
you can even
Yeah.
reprocess the waste to make more energy, which is what France does.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
making those little nuclear batteries now that they're gonna be like the size of a double A
Oh,
battery.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
That's
they have like a huge lifetime, like 50 to 100 years.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah,
And they can and you get full use out of them for that duration.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's made off
That's
of
kind
just
of wild.
nuclear waste. That's they
Reprocess
do something.
probably. Yeah.
That is so. I actually did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know that
technology
either.
is gonna save us. So hopefully we
But
can.
as soon as that hits the market,
Yeah.
that like that's gonna mess up the battery market.
Yeah, a big battery's gonna shut it down.
Big
Well,
battery.
the people are having trouble getting a hold of lithium, so that's coming at a
Mm-hmm.
really good time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, another thing. Yeah, lithium. Like a lot of the labor is slave labor over in Africa and also Russia, and that's like another big thing. Like your electric cars are being made out of the bloody hands of these laborers, you know.
Mhm.
So,
That's so
Yeah.
sad.
hmm
But
I don't know if it's a big percentage, but it's definitely happening.
yeah. But yeah, so we'll get on to you, Tony, the last answer of the show. So what do you think is the number one issue facing Americans in the USA today?
That's a great question because there's a lot of things
There's
happening.
a lot, yeah.
I think my priority really is the lack of, I guess, a free market of ideas. So like it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about school choice. I think that's something vital for our society right now. I think that a kid should be able to get an education that is quality no matter of their zip code. I don't think that your zip code should dictate what school you go to. And I
Hmm.
think you should be able to put your money that the government's taking, by the way, wherever you want to put it. And I think that's a really big thing that we should be making as a liberty movement a priority because once we properly educate our kids, then those kids can be better citizens in the future as adults and then hopefully fight for a good cause like liberty. That's a really big thing for me. I think that's where we need to focus a lot of our energy is making sure that our kids are properly educated. Me as when I went through school, I really honestly just I got great grades and I never understood it because I didn't ever comprehend what the hell I was being taught. I was literally just being taught buzzwords and buzz topics that I was going to take a test on. Standardized
Right.
testing has ruined education, and I think it's something that needs to be abolished, along with the rest of the government. But that's a whole other topic. Um, so like for example, like mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Got driven into my head 1,000 times.
It's important,
And
goddammit, yeah.
yeah, it's important. Like remember that. And it's like,
It is.
okay, cool. Like how did that help me with paying my car or something? You know, like that's just not something I give a shit about. Like sure, it's cool to know. If I wanted to be a biologist, then awesome. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
they didn't help me understand
Got
a
my
plant
biology
cell.
shit
They
on
didn't
right
help me
now.
understand an animal cell. They taught me the buzzwords that are going to come up on these tests. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a huge problem, and that needs to be addressed. And
Seriously.
that's actually gonna help everything else fall into place, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, things can turn out good. I mean, we're doing everything we can here to make sure good candidates, good people get in. We need honesty in our institutions, and the best place to start would be Congress right now. So, midterms are going to be
Yeah.
really exciting. We got the primary coming up here on Tuesday, so I'll be getting some footage of that. It's going to be really exciting. I want to be out on the ground. So, it's going to be an
So
awesome
excited.
time, and we're going to, like I said, we're going to get these candidates in. We're going to do everything we can to win. That's what we're doing. So, if you have anything to take away from this, it's definitely get involved in politics, because as you've seen, I think these guys have just opened their minds to the world, and they're moving through it in a better, more competent, more wise way from all of this. So, yeah, if there's one thing I could say, definitely at least get into politics, just to door knock and campaign, because it's really invaluable experience you can have that you can apply to the rest of your life. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, for staying, for tuning in. Thank you, Anthony Orwick. Thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Tony. This has been a great show. This is the first actual podcast kind of setup that we've had that wasn't focused
We
on
should do
news.
this again.
Oh no, we will. We can have a part 2 for sure. I want to bring in some other Liberty homies as well to have a more like kind of hangout kind of thing instead of kind
That
of
would be so
questioning.
much fun.
But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode, which will probably be pretty soon. So keep it spicy out there. All right. All right, guys. Have a good night.